By day, he's a homeless beggar. By night, he returns to his 9,000 square foot mansion. Turns out, he's a billionaire hiding his identity to find a woman who loves him for who he is, not his money. But he never expected to find true love. Most people walked past him like he was invisible, dirty, ragged, just another jobless beggar slouched by the corner of Bishop Street, hands out, head down. But if they looked closely, they'd see the intelligence in his eyes, the way he never begged too hard, the way he only stayed until noon. Chris Okafor wasn't your average beggar. He owned 4 companies. One of them, Okafor Technologies, had just promoted a new general manager. He didn't need a dime from anyone. He was hiding in plain sight. Why? Because Chris had been used, lied to, and heartbroken too many times by women who only saw his money. So now he was searching for something real. And Bishop Street? That was his test ground. Then came her, Kamsi, a slim, beautiful waitress who served at the food joint beside his spot. Every morning, she brought him leftover akra and smiled at him like he was human. She didn't know he watched her. Every single day. One morning, as he sat beneath the broken signboard, Chris heard shouting. It was Kamsi, arguing with a man in an expensive shirt. Her fiancé. You're embarrassing, Kamsi, Nelson said, loud enough for everyone to hear. You're just a common waitress. I've just been made general manager. I can't marry beneath me. People paused. Some gasped. Kamsi stood frozen, eyes glistening. And to make things easier, Nelson continued, I'm with your cousin now. Tina. At least she understands class. That was the moment Kamsi collapsed to the ground, not from pain, but from pure shock. Chris stood up from his corner. Something in his chest moved. He couldn't stand it anymore. He walked over and crouched beside her. I know you don't know me, he said gently. But if you need someone to walk you out of here with dignity, I can pretend to be your man. Kamsi looked at him through teary eyes. You're a beggar, she whispered. And I'm a waitress, he replied. We already look like a couple people laugh at. A broken laugh escaped her lips. She nodded, and just like that, a deal was born. A pretend engagement to a homeless man. And she had no idea. He was a billionaire in disguise. Kamsi stood outside her small apartment in the quiet Ajagunal neighborhood, staring at the man she'd just agreed to pretend date. Chris, still in his rags, held a nylon bag filled with bread and bottled water. He looked awkward, out of place, but strangely peaceful. I must be crazy, she muttered under her breath, unlocking the gate. He didn't respond. He just smiled like he'd seen worse. Come in, she said. Inside, her apartment was neat and modest. The furniture was old but well kept. Her father's medical reports lay stacked on the center table, and framed photos of happier times filled the shelves. You have a nice place, Chris said, still standing near the door. You can sit, Kamsi replied, unsure of what came next. The room felt too quiet. Then she blurted it out. You don't have to say yes. You don't even know me. Chris tilted his head. You don't know me either. But you stood by me when everyone else ignored me. That means something. She swallowed. My dad has cancer. Stage 4. Doctors say he has just 3 months left. All he wants is to walk me down the aisle before he dies. Chris nodded slowly. That's why you need a fake fiancé. Yes. He took a seat. Then let's do it right. Right? Chris pulled a tiny notebook from his pocket. We'll rehearse our backstory. How we met. First kiss. Favorite things. The lies have to match. If this is going to be convincing, we can't afford to slip up. Kamsi stared at him. He sounded like he'd done this before. You're surprisingly organized. Chris chuckled. Even beggars need structure. She smirked. It was the first time she'd smiled all day. But her smile faded when she realized what was coming next. Her family. Her cousin Tina. Nelson. The humiliation waiting back home. You okay? He asked. She sighed. They're all expecting someone else. Someone rich. Nelson's working at a company now. Big promotion. They'll think I'm dragging trash in because I'm desperate. Chris raised an eyebrow. He works at Okafor Technologies? Yes. Why? Chris shrugged. Just curious. She didn't notice the faint smirk on his face. That night, she helped him take a bath. No, not like that. She handed him soap and towels, pointed to the bathroom, and brought out some of her late uncle's clothes. She trimmed his hair, lined his beard, and gave him an old wristwatch her dad once wore. When he stepped out an hour later, she gasped. He looked elegant. Same man, different presentation. His dark skin glowed. His cheekbones stood out. The trimmed beard sharpened his jaw. She couldn't take her eyes off him. "You clean up really well," she whispered. "I told you," he said, structure. They shared a laugh. A real one this time. And for the first time in a long time, Kamsi felt something unfamiliar. Hope. The next morning, Kamsi and Chris boarded a small bus headed to Nsukka. She hadn't been home in months. Not since her father's diagnosis, or the cousin betrayal that tore her mother's heart. The ride was mostly quiet. Kamsi stared out the window. Chris scribbled notes in his little book. She finally spoke. "What are you writing?" He turned the page to show her. "Story of how we met. She spilled Zobo on my trousers. I said it's fine, but she apologized 3 times. We laughed. That became the beginning." Kamsi laughed. "That never happened." "It will. Just wait," he said with a wink. When they got to the compound, her mother came running out with open arms. "Kamsi," she cried. "My daughter." The older woman hugged her tightly, then turned to Chris and blinked. "This is him." Chris smiled politely. "Yes, Ma. I am Chuka." He had given a fake name to keep things neat. You clean, Shah," her mother said, narrowing her eyes suspiciously. "But are you responsible?" Chris nodded. "I love your daughter, Ma. She deserves peace." The words caught Kamsi off guard. They weren't rehearsed, but they felt real. Inside the house, her father lay on a worn mattress in the sitting room, his skin pale, his bones showing through. "Papa," Kamsi dropped to her knees. "My baby," he whispered, barely lifting his hand. She held it gently. "This is Chuka, Papa. My fiancé." The old man turned his head. His eyes met Chris's. A slow, knowing smile spread across his face. "You are not what you seem," he said faintly. Chris froze. "What do you mean, Papa?" Kamsi asked. But her father had already closed his eyes, tired again. That evening, the family compound turned into a war zone. Tina arrived first, loud and overdressed as usual. "Wait, this is him," she asked, pointing at Chris with a sneer. Kamsi didn't answer. Then Nelson came in behind her. His eyes locked on Chris immediately. "I've seen you before," he said slowly. Chris said nothing, just smiled. Nelson turned to Kamsi. "So this is your rebound? A man who looks like he sells secondhand belts in traffic." Chris chuckled softly. "Actually, I own the belt company. But it's okay." Tina burst into laughter. "He's joking. Obviously." Kamsi held Chris's hand tighter. "He's here because he loves me. He's here because he wants to see my father smile before he leaves this world. What about you two?" Nelson's smirk faded. Tina scoffed. "We'll see how long this nonsense lasts." Later that night, Chris helped her father drink his meds. "You're a good man," the old man said weakly. "But you are hiding pain." Chris nodded. "I've known betrayal. I've known loss. But your daughter, she makes me want to believe again." The old man smiled. "Then make her happy. No matter what it costs you." Chris bowed his head. "I will." 3 days after they arrived, Kamsi's mother announced a small engagement dinner. Nothing fancy, just close family and a few neighbors. But for Kamsi, it felt like walking into a lion's den. As they got dressed, Chris wore a simple white kaftan Kamsi borrowed from her uncle's wardrobe. It was a little loose, but on him it looked elegant. His posture, his poise, his calm confidence, everything about him screamed, not average. "You walk like someone who owns the world," she teased as she fixed his buttons. He smiled. "Maybe I do. But tonight I'm yours." Her hands paused. The weight of those words hung in the air. She quickly looked away. "Don't forget. This is just pretend." "Of course," he replied softly. "Just pretend." The compound was buzzing with whispers as they stepped out. Some people shook Chris's hand politely. Others gave him side eyes. Tina stood in a hot red lace gown, glass of wine in hand. Nelson was at her side, wearing a smug smile and acting like the host. "So," he said as they sat down, "where did you two meet again?" Kamsi tried to speak, but Chris beat her to it. She spilled Zobo on me, right in front of Ojalegbo roundabout. She apologized so much, I had to marry her. Some of the guests laughed. Kamsi's uncle narrowed his eyes. And where do you work, young man? Chris smiled. It's a small business. I invest quietly, mainly tech. Ah, tech, her uncle scoffed. That's what they all say now. Until it's time to pay bride price. Nelson leaned in. What's your net worth? Nelson. Kamsi snapped. This is a dinner, not a job interview. But Chris held up a hand. It's okay. He looked Nelson dead in the eye. It fluctuates. Last I checked, about 18 billion. The table went dead silent. Then Tina cackled. 18 what? Thousand? Chris smiled. You'll know soon. Nelson muttered, this guy's a clown. The insults continued. They made sly comments about Chris's shoes, his accent, his vague job. But Kamsi noticed something strange. Every time someone asked Chris something ridiculous, he answered with calm precision, as though he was trained for this. Even her grandmother whispered later, this man no be ordinary. The final blow came after dinner, when Nelson cornered Kamsi near the backyard. I know who he is, he said. She tensed. What do you mean? I went to the HR files at the company. There's no Chuka there, but I've seen his face. He leaned closer. He's not a nobody. And when I find out who he really is, this whole charade will collapse. Before Kamsi could reply, Chris appeared behind her. Everything okay? Nelson smirked. Perfect. He walked away. Chris looked at her. You alright? I don't know any more, she whispered. Chris gently took her hand. Kamsi, you don't have to do this alone. And again, the words felt a little too real.